staff of First Horizon for hosting us this morning. I'd also like to say thank you to District 6 Councilman Brett Withers, who is with us again this morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. The city of Nashville suffered a horrific tragedy on yesterday, and our heartfelt prayers and condolences go out to the family and to all of those affected. And so at this time, I would ask you to join in a moment of silence for Covenant School and the families of Covenant School. Thank you. As we start our agenda for the day, we would like to take a look at the minutes from the February 16th meeting and the March 20th work session. And on Friday, you should have received these via SharePoint link. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to review them. If not, they're behind tab number 1 in your binders. If you have reviewed them, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or corrections? If not, all in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. And the motion passes. Now we'll hear from our Executive Director, Monica Faulknerson.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. You do have the agenda before you. Essentially, there are 2 items. The Finance Committee report, which includes a recommendation from the committee for a resolution approving the Sounds 24 Capital Improvement Plan for First Horizon Park. And then we will also have a presentation of the financing plan and some other outstanding documents related to the East Bank Stadium. Are there any questions about the agenda? I want to take a second just to thank you all for being here. This has been it's been a lot this month, and I really do appreciate your diligence and just showing up and making time and rearranging schedules and all the things that you all have done to be here. It's very important and very much appreciated. I also want to thank our staff because these meetings, there's a lot of details, a lot of coordination with a lot of people, and so to have, I think maybe 3 meetings in less than 4 weeks is a lot, and so I'm very grateful and appreciative to the staff and everyone who is the facilities. Oh my goodness, everyone who has made this happen. So thank you. When we're not preparing for board meetings, we've been digging into facility damage. You all are aware of, and you've gotten reports on the November water main break at Bridgestone Arena and the winter freeze damage at Nissan Stadium. And this morning, the Sounds presented to the Finance Committee on some of the damage that has happened here as a result of the wind, storm, and a fire to the electrical panel. I also mentioned to the committee that Metro has opened FEMA claims on both the winter freeze and the wind storm damage, and so we're working through that process. Josh and I will be at Bridgestone Arena later this afternoon working with the Predators and some outstanding insurance issues that need to be resolved over there, and so we'll just continue to keep you updated. But this has been something that we haven't seen. It's been, just a lot of challenges and a lot of hits, but we're working through them. Are there any questions? If not, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Monica. And I would concur that we certainly appreciate the staff and this board for the time commitment that you've made to this process. It has been different, and I'd like to say that, or think that there's light at the end of the tunnel, so I think we see it. So we will keep pushing through. At this time, we'll hear from our Finance Committee report from Vice Chair Frank Harrison. They met right prior to this meeting this morning. So, Frank.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. The Finance Committee met this morning at 9:30. The minutes of the February 16th, 2023 meeting were approved, in addition to the following items that were presented. The Sounds presented their FY 2024 Capital Improvement Project Plan, which is an annual requirement of the ballpark agreement. For the FY24, they have requested the following: replacement of a concourse level padded bottom seats, 760 seats, at a cost of approximately $235,700. Also, the extension of the protective netting of the foul poles at a cost of approximately $125,000 to possibly $200,000. And third, the conversion of LED field lighting costs, approximately $625,000 to maybe $685,000. The committee recommends approval for the FY24 Capital Improvement Project Plan for Horizon Park.
Is that a motion?
Yes, and I entertain a motion.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the First Horizon Park fiscal year 24 capital improvement project plan. Any discussion? Questions? Thoughts? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The motion passes.
Also, the Sounds also presented an update of their facility, and this also concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Moving on in our agenda, we have the review of the East Bank Stadium project financing plan and documents, which is where we'll spend the vast majority of the remainder of this meeting. But before that, I would like to invite Deputy Mayor Sam Wilcox to have some words and reflect on yesterday's occurrence.
Thank you, Chair Bender and Executive Director Fock-Knudsen. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the tragedy yesterday. It puts in perspective all of our work that we're doing. Discussing stadium financing feels pretty trivial today. But out of respect for all of your time, we have guests who have flown in here today. Out of respect of their schedules as well, we wanted to push forward and make sure that we can get through this information, or get this information to you all. You all have a chance to review, ask your questions. But just wanted to acknowledge what happened in our city yesterday, and just take a moment to reflect on kind of where that sits within our priorities. So thank you all.
Thank you. So at this point, we would ask Finance Director Kelly Flannery, Deputy Law Director Tom Cross, and Jeff Oldham, who's with Bass, Berry & Sims, our Metro Bond Counsel. We thank you all for being back with us today. We've spent a lot of time together in the last few weeks. But this morning, as I said, we'll be focusing on the financing plan and also to review some final documents. As always, I would encourage the board to ask questions as they come up. I think it helps the board to get a good understanding, and it will also help our Metro Nashville network to have a clear understanding of what we're doing. So if there are no objections, I will ask the administration to start by introducing any guests that you have with you today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Kelly Flannery, the Finance Director for Metro. I hope you'll accommodate. I did not follow your direction and invite the parties you requested. But I do have a really robust team here today. All right. So some of these folks you've met in prior meetings. Some are here with me. Some are remote watching. You've met Steve Johnson with Hilltop, and he is in the room. He's not one of the four of us, obviously. Jeff Oldham, Bass, Berry & Sims partner and bond counsel to both Metro and the sports authorities in the room. Inner Circle Sports you've met previously. That's the group that does the facility financing work specific to stadiums. They've done a lot of help in negotiating of the transaction, along with the group from Greenberg that you met last week. New to the party is to my left here, Ben Wrigley, and he's with CSL. an industry that I did not know existed prior to this transaction, but works, and he'll speak more to his expertise, but works specifically on revenue assumptions and viability and affordability around stadium financings and across many sports industries. So a nerdy but cool job, I think. And then to my right, equally nerdy and cool job is RCLCO, Aaron Talkington, who works specifically on real estate development around sporting venues, which again, did not know that was a job until we started this process. So I'm really fortunate that we've put together a group of really qualified people. I think our greatest asset at Metro is we know what we know, we know we don't know things, and we know when to ask for help. And so we're really proud we've put this team together. And rounding out that crew, I think some of this group might know Jeffrey Scruggs. He's the head of public finance at Goldman Sachs. He participated in Metro transactions in the past. I think for some of you, you may have been around for the convention center financing. He was a big piece of that. And joining him, unfortunately, limited space here, but equally as important, behind me is Stacy Sonnenberg, who works, again, specifically in the financing of sports stadiums, both nationally and internationally. Very broad depth of knowledge there, as well as Steve Fortino, and his name didn't make the slide, but he's probably the hidden star. Matt Webb, also with Goldman, is in the room as well. Is there anybody else here I'm forgetting? I think that is the cadre. So the four of us are here today. We'll walk through. I just would like to, there's a fair amount of detail, but similarly to the group we had last week, I would ask you to really focus in on questions about process and skill, and we have experts here, and they are the industry, and this is a time to take advantage of that opportunity and ask them about, is what we're doing normal? Is it right? And is it comparable to what other people are doing? I think that's where I've found the most value, and I think the opportunity is for all of you. So with that, just a reminder of how we got where we are. The goal here is to support a new stadium, and Ben will speak to kind of these first two bullets of why an enclosed stadium works and how it will benefit Nashville and kind of industry standards around that. And then to the next box, the development of the broader East Bank. Erin has been involved not just in the stadium financing, but working with the planning department on the creation of the East Bank plan. So she's intimately familiar with the goals of the entire project, and will speak to some revenue assumptions around that. And then for myself and Jeff to speak to would be, what does the proposed financing plan look like? We talked a lot last week about the flow of funds. We've included in the appendix just a reminder of how those revenues flow, but we're going to kind of put them to work today and look at what we're suggesting and what we think will bring the best financing plan, both to protect Metro and as well as to provide an entity and for the authority to be proud of. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Thank you. Okay, I think before we get into the slides a little bit, maybe I will define what it means to be nerdy and cool at the same time. So CSL is a business planning advisory group, and we specialize in the market and financial evaluations for new or redeveloped. In this case, it's stadiums, but it can also be arenas, ballparks, amphitheaters. It can be attractions, convention centers, or other public assembly facilities. And we have offices in Frisco, Texas, just north of Dallas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and well as London, England, that helps us branch out into the world. My role is to run our global consulting practice, but I also then really specialize on the professional sports projects that we have within our team. We've done about 2,000 studies. Maybe that's the nerdy part, and here's the cool part. We've worked with 31 of 32 NFL teams throughout the years. We've done the new stadium studies for the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Rams, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Minnesota Vikings, the San Francisco 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Arizona Cardinals, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Houston Texans. So that just sort of, is part of what we bring to the table when we sit down and we start to look at some of the preliminary revenues and ultimately the taxes that are a function of that. And what I'll do just a little bit before we talk about that specific slide is what did we do and what have we been doing to arrive at these projections? And that's a review of the local market. You understand where you are. We have to kind of come in and take an objective look and then compare that to other NFL markets with new stadiums to understand the absorption. We look at those comparable stadium benchmarkings. What are the characteristics in terms of building program, pricing, utilization? Competitive analysis, obviously we're here today in this venue, great ballpark, understanding what's worked here, what is it that they do, and they are competing for the dollar in the marketplace. Then there's a validation of assumptions in this instance where it's historical operations and the context and how that's directly related to tax generation. Market penetrations, which I'll talk about here, benchmarking, the analysis of the ancillary revenues from food and beverage, merchandise. There's a per cap spending metric that's out there that we utilize when we look and we cross that from one venue to another. The analysis of the live music and third-party events, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then ultimately, we do go out and we develop a model. And that model will continue to be revised as we go through this process. So on the screen, one of the things that's out there is we have to really sort of think about, first and foremost, the design assumptions that are being laid out in front of us. Does the stadium have the right capacity? Does it have the right number of suites? What is it in terms of club seats and their locations? And based on what we've done in what we call a market penetration is where we take current peer inventory in the NFL and we compare that and we extrapolate that to the market size. And we basically are showing you here that Nashville can support a stadium that had a capacity of 60 to 65,000, 113 to 120 luxury suites, and 8,400 to 87 what we'll call club and loge seats. The stadium today, as being contemplated, will be 60,000, so we're on the lower end of our initial penetration range. The stadium will have approximately 120. It's 122 suites if we're there, and then it'll have about 7,107 club and loge seats. So just off that, the design itself aligns with where Nashville is in terms of what you would expect if you were going out to build. Not having done an in-market survey or anything of that nature. All of the metrics look very good as to where that is in terms of the way we would think about it. Then, of course, what we'll do is we'll lay our pricing against that inventory and where it's located. Now, the big benefit of this building is the fact that it has, go back one more, is that it has the roof. And what is out there in the ability for the roof is what it's going to do from, I'll call it a third-party event basis. It's the ability now that it can extend itself year-round, whereas right now, those third-party events really have to live in the late shoulder areas of spring and into the fall, and has to balance themselves around the ability of what damage they might do to the playing surface during the football season. That all has to be taken into account. Now, with the ability to go ahead and make the football stadium, the field, basically disappear, and the opportunity, what we're going to see is a big lift. And what you see on the screen right there in the upper left is where the new stadiums are in terms of their number of events. And then, of course, where we are in our projections. The big number that's up there that you'll notice is the increase in concerts. It's projecting 16 concerts relative to the rest of the 38 other events. What you'll see there, and what we'll talk briefly about, is the fact that historically right now they just did 10. 4 nights of the CMAs plus the others that are there. And the roof will now provide guarantee in terms of weather and will extend that season. And so in our estimation, the ability to go out and grab 6 more nights, not necessarily different performers, it'll be multiple nights by the same performer, is bolstered by a couple of things. Nashville hosts the second most stadium concerts per capita today in an outdoor venue, and the second most concerts per capita, period, behind only Las Vegas. It is a testament to this town as an entertainment destination that you'll have this ability. The new stadium will allow the artists now to feel much more comfortable having those extra nights, knowing that the local market and the tourist market will support. And then I think there's probably something that's out there that could become very unique in the future, would be the idea of a potential residency. Because you're such a home to country music, this would be the one venue where one of those performers could go ahead and do that on a regular basis throughout the year. And that would be something that would be, obviously very beneficial and very unique, and the stadium, because of the way it's constructed, affords that.
I think, yeah, I should have mentioned in my remarks, just for an administrative function, I think just the nature of how each one of our pieces tied together, and this is a pretty brief deck, that if we could just get through it and then do Q&A, I think that would be the preference. No one has any aversion to that. Plow through. So just a reminder, we talked about this at least twice before, but when Metro put together the concept, whether it was going to be a renovation or a remodel or a new construction, it was always about setting guardrails, and that is what we did. And just these are a reminder of what they are. We are going to meet the $760 million commitment that was laid out and approved in the term sheet, and we're going to do that with a minimal amount of backstop possible. We've talked about that a lot, and also in the deck we included an appendix, just a reminder for folks, what is the backstop, how does it work, and we can go through that again if you would like. But and then the other priority that we heard both from this body as well as council was how are we going to treat that extra revenue, and it was very important to this team and all of you that there was a mechanism by which we could take any excess revenue and retire bonds early. And so as reflected in the definitive documents that we spoke about last week, and which you'll see in this financing plan, is all three of these goals have been achieved. So just a little bit of an overview of the financing, and we can get into any level of detail you'd like, but I'm going to hit the ones I know that you're most interested in. And well, we won't know until we know, because that is the nature of selling debt. The expectation is that we will backstop no more than about 20 to 30% of the transaction, and about $150 to $250 million. And because that is market dependent, I can't give you a definitive number, but we're really proud of that number. It's a departure from what we've done, and you'll see that in the appendix as well, the history of how we've used the backstop. This is a very minimal amount, and really confident and proud of the deal we put together that allows us to do that. And the final maturity of the bonds will not exceed the expiration of the lease, because that makes a whole lot of sense. We wouldn't want debt to go beyond the commitment that we have from the team. And then we talked about the team is going to pay off the existing bonds, because some of the revenue sources will be used in the new bonds. They will defease those at the time of the sale of the new bonds. And they might be issued in more than one series, and interest rates, will be determined as market conditions prevail. Jeff can speak more towards where the market is looking, but there's every advantage in executing this transaction now. I don't think the Fed has been secretive about their future plans, and that is the market which we are basing our sale on. So, and just a reminder of the revenue options that we have in front of you. We've talked about them all several times before. I think the one that most interested people was the utilization of the water sewer pilot, and this transaction and financing plan contemplates pledging that pilot through the day that the new stadium opens. So essentially 3 years, and then that we will not use it any further. So that really will eliminate any Metro contribution to the project once the doors open on this facility. And just a quick walkthrough of the revenues. We know that a lot of it will come from the hotel occupancy tax. We have a really robust history of solid revenue growth, and again, Jeff could speak to the difference from doing a convention center deal in 2008, 9, 10 in the middle of economic calamity with a not proven revenue source versus doing it now with a revenue source that we have seen 10% growth since 2010, and a 27.5% rebound from pre-pandemic levels, which is unprecedented and not anything that any other community has seen. But even with all of that positive revenue growth, rating agencies, investors, and just prudent financial planning, we are assuming only a 2% growth rate annually in this model. So it is extremely conservative on the hotel side. As I mentioned, the water and sewer pilot, it's $4 million every year. It will be pledged for the first 3 years until 2027 when the stadium opens. It will then go away. It will be at the discretion of City Council if they want to reappropriate that $4 million to another purpose or back to the water department, but it will no longer be required for this transaction. And then, as we'll discuss in the subsequent pages, the assumptions around this, and based on the information Ben and Aaron have provided, the other two revenues are the in-stadium sales tax revenue, which we all know how that flows, and in 2021 through 29, that goes, the whole back will come off, and you'll see that in the model and in the subsequent pages. Again, the sales tax in the stadium is projected based on the information that CSL and the team have put together, and that they're comfortable and I think would call conservative still. And then the ticket tax and team rent, the existing ticket tax obviously is a flat tax. The team rent will be a flat based on events. So those are really solid conservative estimates there. And with that, I will turn over to Aaron to discuss the development.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Similar to Ben, maybe I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to our CLCO. We're a 55-year-old real estate consulting company that focuses on the market, economic, and financial questions and strategies for real estate development. We work on over 500 projects a year. Not all our sports, but many of my projects are, and I probably spend over half of my time on sports adjacent real estate, which is a kind of a major growth area for a lot of cities because stadiums sit in areas with underutilized land. I'm particularly excited about the East Bank plan, which the planning department has spent a lot of time and effort on, and it's really an outstanding result. And so when we look at these sites, we're thinking about them not just from the sports perspective, but from the broader market perspective. What wants to happen here? How quickly can it happen? What are the broader conditions? Who are we trying to serve? What's the breadth of development types that might go here? And when we look at the area that's shown on the map on this slide, one of the unique aspects of this particular deal is this 130-acre state authorized sales tax capture zone. And so we had the opportunity to work with Metro to help draw that. And so you can see it in this purple outline. It basically covers everything outside of the stadium itself, which is predominantly Metro-owned land, with the exception of the truck stop development, which is on the north side. It's kind of that jut out on the top there. And what happens within this zone is that, we will show the revenue sources in the stadium later. Outside of the stadium, we have 50% of the sales tax on both hotel and retail spending that's available to the project. And so one of the questions is obviously there's not a lot of development in this area today. What's likely to happen and what's the pace of that development? So that's what we've focused on forecasting to include within the Metro financing. So if we flip to the next slide, just to give you a sense of what's within this area and what's planned. The broader East Bank vision within this area includes about 5 million square feet of new development on Metro-owned land. That's actually the conservative scenario. I know that probably sounds like a lot, or it's hard to conceptualize how much that is. We've looked at scenarios that are actually higher than that, given the site's proximity to downtown, as well as the stadium and major arteries and the freeway. That's really a mix of development. There's both affordable housing in here, there's mixed income housing, there's market rate housing, there's a variety of retail and hotel and office envisioned. There's parks and green space and waterfront and a mobility hub. So really it's an exciting new neighborhood that includes a variety of elements for everyone in Nashville to get excited about. When we look at Station East, which is that development I described, also known as a truck stop, they've provided a development plan to Metro Planning that shows about 1,400 residential units, about 1.2 million square feet of office, about 225,000 square feet of retail, about 600 hotel rooms. It's over about 9 blocks. So this is another large, future site to add on to what I just described as Metro's 5 million square feet within that core of the East Bank. And so there are two things happening with relationship to these two development plans right now. Station East is most likely ahead of Metro's land in terms of timing. They're out marketing to tenants right now and hoping that they can break ground soon. And so we've modeled in here the idea that they might start delivering in 25 or 26 and be able to deliver their project, over the next 5 to 6 years following that. And so when we forecast out the retail sales tax revenue in this model, we're capturing the majority of the activity within Station East in that time frame. On Metro's land in the East Bank, there's an active RFP process to find a development partner for some of those sites, which we can't share very much about, obviously, in a public forum. But just so you know, there is activity to move forward with that development. So when we talk about the idea that some of those early sites could start delivering in 27, which is what we're showing in this model, that's a real timeline. That's not everything. That's not 5 million square feet, but we're starting to deliver Metro-owned sites with private development that includes all of the different aspects that we've talked about a minute ago in the East Bank plan in that 27 to 2030 time period. And so within that, what we're looking at is about 186,000 square feet of retail within the Metro-owned land. That's only about a quarter, maybe close to a quarter to a half of the total retail that might occur within the East Bank. So we're just capturing a portion of this up front based on the certainty. The East Bank's likely to build out over a really long time period, maybe another decade past this. And so when we're looking at the development sales tax capture, we're being very conservative to think about just what we think really could happen in the short term. When you look at the truck stop, they've got about 250,000 square feet of retail. And so we're talking about a really significant push to have a place that attracts spending from new residents, a place that serves the unmet demand that maybe in some of the surrounding neighborhoods that just have more food and beverage options, and retail spending that also serves the stadium visitors, but not primarily and only the stadium visitors. So we're really forecasting forward assumptions that are typical of the market performance for these types of developments and a fairly conservative timeline and sales performance for each of these. And so we feel quite comfortable that these sales forecasts are achievable, and really similar to the hot tax, there ought to be an opportunity to outperform.
Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sorry if I keep blowing on my hands here. It's a little crisp in the room, so apologize for that. As Kelly indicated, Goldman Sachs has been the leading underwriter, lender to the sports market. Won't get into that as much, though. Again, my colleague Stacy Sonnenberg is co-head of that group, and she can give you chapter and verse about any of those. But I want to just talk about your project here. There are 4, make it 5 parties that we are thinking about when we're putting together your transaction. There's the rating agencies. They're going to put a rating on your bonds. The bond insurers, there are 1 or 2 still left out there that actually will insure the bonds, give it a higher rating, and therefore a lower cost to investors. There are the investors themselves, and let's be honest, we're ultimately trying to play to them because they're the ones that we want to buy 750 million or so of bonds. So ultimately, a lot of these things are being done for their benefit. There's you all, Sports Authorities, the issuer. Then there's Metro as well. So when we're thinking about the structure, we're thinking about how things play together here. We're thinking about how is it that we can satisfy 5 different parties. Not the easiest thing, but again, very doable. As Kelly indicated, I think back when I think about this transaction, we did Metro's Convention Center transaction in 2010. It's a very, in many respects, this is a very similar set of circumstances in terms of the way that we're approaching it. You have a bundle of revenues, some of which are unproven, some of which are proven, and we have to make assumptions they're going to continue going forward. And then, as Kelly indicated, there's the whole concept of the backstop. Now, when we did the deal in 2010 for the convention center, admittedly, there were more unproven revenue sources, kind of those taxes from that area. So 2/3 of the $650 million or so bonds that we sold were supported by the non-tax revenue backstop, about $450 million. It's not the scenario that we're looking at here. Number one, Metro itself has grown tremendously. Investors love this place. They see it as a long-term growth area. It accrues to your benefit when they start thinking about revenue streams and how those revenue streams may grow in the future. So whether it's the hotel tax, whether it's the in-stadium revenues, whether it's the taxes that could come off the area around it, again, far more confidence now from investor than 2010. So when we think about the amount of the backstop, when Kelly says whether it's 150 or 250 million, and again, we'll know as we get closer to actually selling the bonds, we think about obviously that as being far less important than it was for the convention center. Now, again, the structure, and I'm going to talk a little bit on the next 3 pages about just the revenues and the way the debt service is structured. More than willing to answer any questions that go into more depth. Again, I'll save that for you all in case there are points that you want us to touch on. But again, we're trying to do 3 things here. We're trying to make sure that we produce sufficient revenue, the streams that are dedicated. They're on that page 11 up there, which I'll get to in a second. Trying to make sure that we minimize the cost so that we maximize the excess revenue, because you all, Metro, other parties, obviously have plans on what to do with the excess revenue. It's important to maximize that. And then number 3, as I indicated before, to minimize Metro's participation in terms of the backstop. If we can do all 3 of those things, we're in pretty good shape. So again, let's look at page 11. Page 11 here, and again, it looks like a color explosion. But what we have here are basically the sources of revenue. So when we are talking to the rating agencies, we are trying to, number one, make sure that they appreciate that there are a lot of sources of revenue. And number 2, we're trying to convince them that these sources of revenue have a good amount of surety. They have to be convinced that you are going to give them plus minus. Obviously, we know that revenue streams never are just kind of upward sloping like that. They're going to dip a little. They're going to go up a lot sometimes, as Kelly indicated. You know, recently your hotel taxes have been going up 10% per year. Rating agencies, nobody's going to believe that from a 30-year perspective. That's great. We don't have to. All we're showing them is 1 or 2% per year. And again, you guys have a great track record in terms of producing that. So what we have here, and again, you'll see it in a little more detail in the packets that you have. Obviously, for the folks behind me, it's going to be very hard to see the footnotes on the screen. But what we're doing is basically showing the hotel tax, the in-stadium taxes, the water and sewer pilot, which only lasts another several years, the ticket tax and team rent revenues, and then the development sales tax, which again, because we don't know the entire development program, that's the most speculative. That's the one that if you talk to a rating agency analyst, you talk to a bond insurer analyst or investor, ultimately they give you the least credit. They give you some credit, but the least credit out of all of those streams. The hotel tax you get the most credit for. It's a proven stream. That incremental 1%, it's not going to dissuade anybody from coming to Nashville, that 1%. And so they can pretty much look at what's happened in the past and they can project forward. The others are somewhere in between. And so, again, what you see here is you see through 2026, a little bit of growth there. That big step up is accounting for the new stadium. So the new stadium, the in-stadium revenues, the team rent, that's where you get that 2027 step up. Then you may say, okay, well, what's happening up to between 29 and 30? That's the roll-off of the state withholding. So state withholding rolls off after 2029. You get a little bit of step up. And then again, after that, things are just growing a little bit as you go out, as one would project due to inflation or just due to increased economic activity. So that's page 11. That's what we are dealing with when we are structuring bonds, is the revenue stream. Oh, you want me to do this? Oh, let's see if I can. There you go. Okay. Page 12. This is a depiction of what the debt service or the annual principal and interest payments would look like as we are currently structuring them. It's a different curve than what you saw before. Very purposely a different curve. So you see a couple of step-ups there. Again, through 2026, rating agencies, investors et al., they'll understand that that's operating in the current stadium. Don't want to call it old just yet, the current stadium. Then you see the step up for when in 2027 the new stadium should come online. Okay? That's acceptable as well. The state withholding step up in 2030, also acceptable because that's contractual, and that will happen. After that, we're doing what we call level debt service. Equal annual payments is exactly as you think of your home mortgage, where if you took out a 30-year home mortgage, you're going to make it equal annual installments. This is the most conservative, accepted, and encouraged bond structure that you can get from the standpoint of rating agencies, insurers, and investors. It's what we always recommend trying to do. Sometimes it doesn't work that way because you don't necessarily have the revenue, and you got to be a little speculative on the revenue. Rating agencies, investors, they'll be okay with that if that were the case, but it's not needed here. And so when we talk about presenting a transaction that, number one, minimizes cost, that's what this really does compared to upward sloping. Number two, minimizes any exposure from Metro. That's what this transaction is purporting to do. Now, let's put it together. It's pages 11 and 12 put together. The green line is that debt service line that I showed you in the previous page. The shaded line, instead of giving you the color explosion, we're just giving you in gray, that's what page 11 was. So this is showing you anything above the green line is the projected. And again, can't guarantee, and there may be steps, peaks and valleys, but again, there's a lot of room from the standpoint of a bond transaction. This is giving a lot of room for peaks and valleys. And that's why it's important to structure that level debt service, because the further you go out, for many people, that's when it gets more speculative, but you're giving yourself a lot of room for speculation, if you will. So that's what the transaction is designed to do. As Kelly indicated, the final terms are when we get the chance to talk to investors. Can't talk to investors legally until you actually have a transaction that's out there in the marketplace with papers, with documentation. We're in the process of doing the documentation now from a bond perspective, still talking to the rating agencies and engaging the bond insurers. And all that comes together when you have formal approval and documentation. So, done a lot of work to date. Feel like it's a very good transaction, will be accepted very well in the marketplace. I'm more than willing to answer any questions on the market environment. It changes by the minute right now. But let me hand it over. Kelly, you're going to do the next two?
Didn't know that. Well, it's easy. So 14 is, for all the reasons that Mr. Scruggs just said, we're really confident in our estimates and that they're super conservative. But you got to stress everything, right? You got to do due diligence, and that's what slide 14 is meant to show. Our base case, and then if we were to apply a growth scenario that is more in line with what our experience has been here in Nashville, that is reflected in the green line. And then in the yellow is what if nothing grows? What does that look like? And while that's no one's expectation, it is the charge of any financing to kind of do this homework. So that was just meant to give you a level of comfort in that we are doing our due diligence. And then on the final slide is just where are we in the process? And the documents that we reviewed last week, primarily the development agreement, it affords you the authority, the flexibility on the timing of the issuance. As you will recall, we will come back if this body approves these documents and council approves. There's still one more step for you guys where we come back and do a bond resolution. So all that to say timing is still at the direction of the Sports Authority. We would anticipate, as we mentioned, the market is not in our favor, so the execution of this transaction sooner rather than later would be of the greatest benefit. I think the adage you always hear is time kills deals, and this is one where time and market will kill this deal. And as we talked about last time, Mr. Oldham went in detail, just a reminder of the precedents that have to be met before we would issue bonds and proceeds would be released, and that would include the execution of all the transaction documents that would likely all occur at the same time in a scheduled closing format. The state would need to provide its $500 million in funding. The team would have to prove out its design and pre-construction project, and as we talked about before, the existing bonds would need to be defeased. And I think with that, we're good for Q&A.
Great. Definitely a lot of information in that presentation. And so I think probably the best way for us to approach it is if we align our questions with the subject matter that's on the table. So if someone asks a question and you have questions around that issue, let's focus in on that and move from one category to the next. So we've got a question here.
Can we start from, I guess, can we start with Mr. Scruggs, and then I guess go backwards? So, I guess, so my first question is about the backstop. What was your thoughts behind that 20% backstop, and how does that affect the actual rating?
Can you hear me now? Okay, much better. Mr. Justice, the way that we went into this transaction, our thinking is, can we get that backstop to zero? Fundamentally, that was the goal. And so when we're thinking about, and we've talked to the rating agencies, we're trying to get ratings that are investment grade, hopefully on the whole $750 million of a transaction, and that are sufficiently high, whether they are A-rated, which is a medium-high rated transaction, or greater. And what we'd like to see is, when we think about how much it costs to sell A-rated debt, what is the cost of that versus how much it may cost if we put a little bit of a backstop on it? Because if you don't put a backstop on it, the rating will go down. And so the way that the rating agencies are looking at it is, how much can the revenue stream support? How much can the revenue stream support in terms of the overall amount of debt that needs to be issued? And they may say, listen, I look at those revenue streams, and I'm going to make up something for a minute here. 400 million of those would qualify as A-rated because of the amount of revenue relative to the cost of that debt. 650 million may be triple B rated. And then that final 100 million may be triple B minus rated. So how much would that cost if you have to issue 750 million? So if we had to issue, let's say 450 million, would not need the backstop. Let me make that as a flat statement. We wouldn't need it because the revenues are sufficiently large that you don't need to incur that. When we're at 750 million and we're also trying to minimize the cost here, and that's where that balancing comes in, that's where the issue of the backstop comes in. Now, let me compare that a little bit to the convention center. Convention center could not have been done without the backstop. Pure and simple, plain statement, because there were way too many, at that time, speculative revenues involved. This is a little different. It would be very close to be able to issue all 750 million without the backstop. That's what we're toggling around with right now, quite frankly. And so we get the direction, we're trying to minimize it, but we're also trying to make sure that you have the comfort that you'll get a good amount of excess revenue and you can sleep comfortably at night, that you do have sufficient amount of cushion there, or what we call debt service coverage.
So was the goal of the backstop to lower the debt service? Or okay, I heard some shake your head.
Yeah. Okay. The goal of, anytime you put the backstop on it, the backstop is rated, or currently is rated AA-. that will get you a lower cost of funds than if we get them without a backstop rated A or triple B, and it can be fairly significant amount each year, which again affects the amount of excess revenue you have. It's all kind of circular, if you will. So we would only use the backstop for two reasons. Number one, if you just can't get it sufficiently rated in the investment grade category to sell all $750 million, and or number two, that it really just provided a real boost in terms of minimizing the cost.
Great. Any other questions around the bond?
Mr. Scruggs, what, in your, in reference to page 12, I guess your slide there, what, in an increasing interest rate environment, how did you determine your assumptions there, your interest rate assumptions, and what are they?
What we have done is we've taken a look at today's interest rate environment. We are basically putting in place a 30-year transaction. Again, I've really compared this very similarly to a mortgage. 30-year transaction that has individual maturities that kind of go from 1 to 30. What we're looking at right now, when Kelly makes a statement, interest rates are kind of all over the place, which it's not exactly a term of art, but they're all over the place right now. Our assumption is that based on today's environment, this is what this debt service structure will look like. For rating agency purposes and bond insurers, we will do what we call stress tests, and usually stress tests involve increasing the rates 25, 50, or 75 basis points, and then being able to show them that there is sufficient coverage to prove out what the rating agencies think the ratings may be. So this is the piece that is most at risk as we sit here. I can't guarantee you this is exactly what it's going to look like. I know you guys know that as well. But when we do show the rating agencies and the bond insurers, they will make us stress this higher. They don't care if it goes lower, that's all for the better, but they will make us go higher on this. But this form of debt, I will assure you, this is what they like to see. They like to see it level. Because again, as it relates to the revenue stream, they know that is going to be kind of up, down, but generally going up. That's your history. They like to see the particularly 15, 20 years out that even if something has a spike up and down, a COVID environment, a 2008 environment, fortunately been through both of them. Obviously, the city came out of both very, very well, but it gives you a lot of room for that kind of spiking up and down.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
So along that same vein, I have a question about, I think you mentioned insurers.
Yes.
And I'd just like to hear something about the impact that insuring the bonds, given the cost of insurance, how that impacts the investors or the ability to sell the bonds.
Yeah.
And also kind of talk about the credibility of the insurers. That's been an issue.
Ms. Bender, I think you must know a little bit about the history of the bond insurers. So let me make a kind of a general statement to your first question. Bond insurance can only be used legally, and I'm kind of leaning over, Mr. Oldham is behind me somewhere, but if we use bond insurers, myself and Steve Johnson, your advisor, are going to have to sign a certificate saying that it saved you money. Now, we're going to have to then say that the interest rates, because the bond insurers are AA rated, versus if you sold them without bond insurance, there's a sufficient difference there to account for the cost of the insurance. Cost of insurance is one time up front. The savings will be discounted, but we have to legally be able to tell you that. So that gives you a surety that somebody's not doing something untoward towards you. Now, how do we determine what the market is for insurance? I will tell you, I hate to say it repeatedly, it's kind of a game time decision. We will make it known to the investor community, assuming that bond insurers say, okay, and I'm going to address the health of the bond insurers in a second, I promise. But we will make it known that bond insurance is available for some or all of the transaction. And we will ask them basically, what do you think? And it's our responsibility and the rest of the team's responsibility to have those conversations with the investors to figure out what the yield difference is between uninsured and insured bonds. And by the way, we may come back and say, yeah, you get the benefit 25 years out, but you don't get the benefit 10 years out. I can't then then make a statement with a straight face to Mr. Oldham that we should have insured 10 years out. I can make it on the 25 and you can separate it. You don't have to go all or none. So our first job is to try to secure one of the two bond insurers. There are only two bond insurers left. I'll tell you those in a second. But my job is to see if they will accept this transaction and to get the maximum flexibility out there. So it'd be great if they said, I'm willing to give you insurance for $500 million, not willing to give you insurance for the other 250. Okay, great. Just tell me the $500 million. I'll work with that, and I'll insure some or all if it works for the Sports Authority. So that's how we think about what the benefit may be. The two bond insurers that are left, because again, stepping back, I know you're going to know this. Pre-crisis in 2008, there were 6 or 7 bond insurers. 5 of the 6 were rated AAA. They were used for most transactions. They were used for previous Sports Authority transactions, if my memory's serving me correctly. They were rather generic. Hate to see that statement in print, but they were rather generic. There are 5 AAAs, and you just go and solicit from all 5. There are 2 left now. There's Assured Guarantee and there's Build America Mutual. They both have a AA rating from Standard & Poor's. One of them has a 1, I believe, rating from Moody's. That's Assured Guarantee. Build America Mutual doesn't have a Moody's rating. So it just means that the benefit that an investor perceives is not a AAA benefit, it's a AA benefit. And so when we think about what the rating is, or what the rating that we could secure on some or all of the Sports Authority debt, if we could get a AA rating, we wouldn't have much need for the insurers. But if we're going to be working in the single A or triple B world, if the insurers approve that transaction, then there's a good possibility that the net benefit, after taking out their costs, will benefit the Sports Authority, give you further security that your revenue stream is going to be sufficient, and obviously then maximize the excess revenues. So that's the goal.
Thank you.
Quite
Great
welcome.
answer. Appreciate it. Any other questions on the bond?
Well, actually, I have a hotel occupancy tax
Okay, I think
question.
we're finishing. Any other questions on the bond?
I have one last question, just really quick. Is this structure the best structure for the lowest debt service possible?
If we use bond insurance and the backstop, that is going to be your lowest possible cost.
At 20%?
Well, in theory, if we did 100% backstop, that would be your lowest cost. But in the construct, and Mr. Justice, that's where I get back to there's a toggling exercise here, because I'm aware that Metro, has other plans for in the future what they may want to use their backstop. But kind of in conversations, the back and forth will be, how much do you want to use the backstop versus how much is the incremental cost? And so when I say the lowest possible cost, I never want to say the lowest cost, but in the realm of what the variables are that we're working with, getting bond insurance and having some portion backstopped by the backstop is the way of minimizing the cost. I was almost going to say, was I sufficiently vague about that? Which I didn't mean to be.
Okay, great. Okay. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. With regard to the assumptions around the hotel occupancy tax, and I think this is probably a question for you, Ms. Flannery. It appears as though we are using the 27.5% 2022 collections spike as our new benchmark and assuming 2% growth on that. Is that correct?
The 2022 number, I don't know that I would characterize it as a spike. The 22 number is, I think, $3 million above the 2019 number, and it's kind of become our new normal. But we are using 2% off of the 2022 number. But we have seen year-over-year growth.
Normal, as in 1 year of.
Well, no, we've seen year-over-year growth since 2010.
Of between 9 and 11%. I guess my question is, if we were to presume a more proven growth rate of between 9 and 11%, as demonstrated by the numbers between 2005 and current, what does that do to either the bond rating, like all of these equations that are sort of connected?
You're recommending using a number that is less than what we actually collected? Is that what you're saying? And we ran it that way?
I guess I'm asking for clarity. It seems as though what you're describing as our new normal is 1 year of enhanced hotel occupancy tax collections based on people coming out of the pandemic really wanting to travel.
Yeah, I would say that the normal, if you will, maybe I'm not answering the question, but when we went to the rating agencies, their viewpoint is 20 and 21 was an anomaly. They use 2019, and then they want to see what 2022 produces. You're correct that Nashville has a proven track record that far exceeds 2%. I think that's what your point was. Why not assume 5 or 7 or 8%? They're not going to. They're going to say Nashville has proven it, so when I think about their stream going forward, you're a safer bet than, won't name a city, but XYZ city. And so we will look at your hotel tax and we may say that's a really strong A-rated tax because you're proven good for it. But I'm still, for practical purposes, only going to assume 2% per year. They're in that 1 to 2% per year camp. Sometimes you can get them maybe at 2.5%, but that's their conservative nature, if you will. Now, obviously, if Nashville continues as it has, you're going to have a barrel full of excess revenue, and that's where I know you guys have talked before about what to use the excess revenue into prepay debt and to just accelerate the retirement of debt so that, if you don't have to have it out there for 30 years, no reason to have it out there for 30 years. There are ways of quickly reducing that.
Understood.
Does this work? The only thing I would add to that is, I like me better. The rating agencies kind of ignoring the pandemic year is not a gift to Nashville. It is just globally how they're treating that experience in time. So when they're looking at it, it's our stadium or anyone's water service, anything, they've made the decision that was such an anomaly and a one-off that when they're reviewing criteria, they just are throwing those 2 years away. So I hope that helps answer.
Questions? Any other questions?
I have one last one. Well, maybe. Why wouldn't the city fully back the bonds to get the debt service as low as possible?
Yeah, I think as Mr. Scruggs indicated, when we look at the utilization of the backstop, it's not transaction by transaction. When we look at the market and the credit quality of it, but we also have to look at the entire financial goal of Metro and what are we trying to achieve. So right now we're talking about a stadium, but there might be future projects, both within this administration and future administrations, and we're talking about a 30-year period. So if there's not a meaningful economic advantage to backstopping the entire thing, why do it? Why commit yourself to something if you don't need it and it's not getting you anything?
Mr. Justice, well, I was just trying to call my colleague over. I want to give you just an order of magnitude between the cost difference between a bond insurance and a backstop. All right, so it's about a 20 basis point differential there. So it's not nothing, not great grammar there, but it's not a huge difference. And so that's where kind of there may be other transactions that Metro wants to do in the future that really need the backstop because the difference in terms of the revenue streams and their credit worthiness that would be pledged then would be a worse, from a rating perspective, a worse set of revenue streams than what you have right now, which we know are an investment grade rated stream.
Great, thanks. That's really helpful.
Yes, if we have finished talking about things that I don't understand, I would like to get to the studies that you do from the standpoint of feasibility and what have you. Have you, in your studies, have you been able to tell cities how their
economic benefits, the sales tax revenue, whatever income revenue they have, can benefit the socially and economically disadvantaged communities within that city. Do you have data in your surveys that discuss that?
I'll just maybe set the table a little bit. So that might be work that these groups do, but what the scope of work for these two was specific for Ben's case to the impact in the stadium, whether or not a new stadium would be supported with events and venues. So the charge was not to look broader than the economic development impact. I think I've seen some work done by Butch and his team around that space, but not the charge of this group specifically. And same with Erin and her crew. It is specific to the impact of a new stadium and what would that look like. Very unique, very transactional to this transaction. So, and if you have anything to add, please feel free.
No, I'll add that's actually not a line of service that we would engage in, even if it had been asked here. It's not something we can provide.
Any other questions?
Well, I think she was getting ready to make a point.
I mean, I'll give you something really simple, which is to say that generating additional revenue for the city's general fund so that your council can decide what to do with it is the direct benefit for the groups that you mentioned. And then it's up to you all and up to the council to decide how to spend that money. If it flows out of this transaction as it's been structured.
Okay, and I think I understand that.
Director Gill, can I ask you to speak into the mic?
Sure. Thank you. Helps me a bit, doesn't it? I was simply interested in how the taxpayers, how the council members, how the authority board members could foresee how we could address some of the disparities within the communities. And I just think that would be a good benefit. And I don't know if, I was hoping you would say that in X city, not giving any names, this is how the city benefited. This is how the socially and economically disadvantaged communities benefited from this development. And that's what I was hoping I would hear.
Does Sam want to make any promises in this regard?
Excuse me? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'll let the team respond as well to this. It's hard to prove a negative, and so I think the most important thing that we're doing in this transaction is alleviating the city of a massive, $1.8 billion unfunded liability. And so Erin is exactly right in creating new revenue streams for the city, freeing up capacity so that the council and the mayor's office can choose to invest in other things is a key point in this transaction. But relieving the city of that unfunded liability is the big win. That means that we do not have to come up with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to fix up the stadium with no other dedicated revenue streams, which means that it's not that the city gets back $1.8 billion, it's that we don't have to spend that on sports stadiums, right? And so does that kind of get to your question? There's also a Nashville Impact Fund here that the team is funding over the 30 years that I'm sure they can speak to as well. But I guess I don't have other cities to point to that have created dedicated revenue streams out of this. But really the big win for the city here is figuring out a way to shift the burden off of the city taxpayers onto the team, the state, and these dedicated revenue streams. Kate, do you want to?
Hi, I'm Kate Guerra. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications for the Titans. To echo Sam, the National Needs Impact Fund is something that I know that the city covered in their presentation at the last work session. that is money that goes out from these revenue streams that stay in the building, that the council can then relegate to what they determine as Nashville's, most largest and most important needs, whether that be income disparity or whether that be opportunities. I think Councilwoman Van Rees, who was here for our last work session, also mentioned that she added the development of professional women's sports to that fund and the types of allocations that funding could be applied to. But the other thing that I'd love to mention as well, and I'm not sure if we've actually had a chance to present some of these programs in front of the Sports Authority, are these commitments that we've made recently as part of our One Community program. And so those programs are something that were contemplated, not just because of what we're talking about here about a new stadium, but we're talking about, a 30-year commitment to keeping our home here in Nashville and continuing to build our home here in Nashville. And so what are the programs, what are the things that we've heard from our neighbors and from our community during that time that we could service, that we could create a commitment to? And we've recently completed, I believe, 14 of the 16, transferring them from letters of intent into binding contracts with those organizations that will look at programs like the digital divide, looking at community centers and how the Titans can invest in them, looking at affordable housing and how the Titans might be able to play a small role in some of the funds that could create more opportunities there. So maybe at some point there'd be an opportunity to present some of those programs in front of you so we can better understand them.
Other questions? I have a question for Aaron. So, Aaron, I was just looking at the stadium campus, and you speak to the different types of facilities that might be a part of that plan. What is the vision for the affordable and market rate housing? How would that work? And how does it play into trying to create a place that actually generates revenues for the city? How would that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We anticipate there might be a lot of housing in this area going forward, and that's good for the city and that's good for the market, because today this land isn't really helping anybody other than maybe people that want to park there for the stadium, who are benefiting or who are parking there and commuting across the river to their offices. And so we're putting a lot of land back into service for all sorts of housing and other uses. I think it's public in the initial RFQ document that was released that, there is a goal from the Housing Task Force to have a significant portion of the first phase of housing be mixed income, including some fairly low income housing. And so we see that as a good first step to make sure that this is a community that welcomes everybody, and that there's a real wide variety of people who can live here and housing opportunities at different price points. And so, it's challenging to project significant retail sales if you're talking about only very, very low income housing, right? Because people have other needs for that besides spending on fun things. And so it is important to have a pretty broad mix of incomes, including market rate housing within this development going forward. But that's part of the Imagine East Bank plan, is to really make sure that we're intentional about that going forward.
Okay. And who would be responsible for that? Would that be the city of Nashville? Who would?
Yeah, I think the city will be responsible for holding a future development partner to a particular mix of housing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from
I would just say that will require city council approval,
yes.
all of that process.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? So my final question is for Ben. And I'm just curious, this is just curiosity. The number of seats, 7,000 versus 8,400, just what would be the reasoning for having 1,400 less than your range?
Been saying what the market could do if you were doing a penetration look at it. I would think that basically what we're looking at here is that the seats that we're talking about, these club and these loge seats, are going to be in much better locations than they are, say, today. If you look at the current stadium, we can all sort of pick out where those club seats are located. And that was just where we built club seats at the time. They were in a separate level. They were a bit away. They weren't necessarily in the lower bowl, all concentrated around, say, the 50-yard line. Well, part of it's going to have to do with the simple fact that there's only so much real estate around the 50-yard line. And I think there's also a second piece there that's called scarcity. And it's the idea that we're going to be able to go out and make sure that the 7,100 seats can be sold and then can be essentially assured that they're going to be sold in perpetuity there by creating some level of scarcity. It allows you then to have some flexibility in what you want to do on pricing of that inventory. But it's really more about making sure that we're putting some of those seats in the better locations and then also giving them some good amenities along with that. The ability to sort of have some level of interaction with players perhaps, which we've seen in some of these new stadiums where the players go running through the tunnels and people sort of seem to get excited by that, or the ability to have a lounge in close proximity to it. So there's some other factors design-wise that do that. And when you're looking at a building that is 60,000 in total and it's roughly 55,500 in actual fixed seats, this is a very good mix that's there. So I don't really, look at it the fact that they're building less than what they're doing. I think that they're probably being very smart right now. And then what we'll go do with the next level of our study is come back to them and come back with a survey and some of our demand methodologies that will reassure again further whether that's 7,100 or if there's the ability to inch that up appropriately. So right now it was a preliminary check on where we were, and we'll get more definitive in the coming weeks, months.
Great, thank you. Well, we appreciate the feedback. I think we've had a very good conversation. Not so many questions because you all did a great job. So we thank you for being here. And
I think there are more.
Are we going to, Jeff, you're going to present the next section. So we're thankful to the administration and our guests for their information today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is this on? Yeah. So this this can be. We're here for y'all, and if you've heard enough and you're ready for us to go home, we're happy. We're happy to go home. But if not, the plan would be to run through the last few documents that we haven't talked about, and the ones we've held back are the ones that sort of document what they just described.
Okay.
This may be the nerdy but not cool portion of the program. You've seen all this. Are we? So there's a list of all the documents, and I'm highlighted there, the ones in bold. These are the ones we're going to talk about today. The development agreement we largely hit on, and I just want to come back and touch on, just so you can go back and see in your documents where the things they talked about, where they land. And so we're in tab A in your binder, the development agreement. And I guess before I get to that, I think we've talked about this, an overall financing schedule. We're in the middle of both the council and the Sports Authority approval process now. Should all these documents be approved, we would come back to this board in late spring, early summer with a bond resolution that authorized everything you just heard about. There would be a bond closing in the summer of 23, and then in a perfect world, those funds would be released to be spent on project costs about a year from now. That's the overall schedule. So as you're listening to this and thinking about timing, that's the backdrop. Just so, they've said this, this, but it's going to come up a couple times. Just a reminder of how this is being funded. $760 million of Sports Authority revenue bonds, or contribution from Sports Authority revenue bonds. The state for $500 million, and we've had discussions with them within the last week. They are actively working on this and understand the schedule and have every intention of meeting it. There is a PSL contribution amount. We're going to talk about the PSL agreement here in a minute. And then there is Stadco on the hook for the balance. And sort of importantly, you know, they're on the balance for any shortfall in those three. Now, they've said there can't be a shortfall in the first two, you know, so we've got to come up with ours. The state has to come up with theirs. But you'll see when we target the PSL agreement, ultimately that is their job to cover that. And so you'll see that when we talk about it. So when we get to the bond resolution, let's don't spend a ton of time here. You've seen bond resolutions before. It'll authorize all the things we just talked about. So I'm going to go through that one. So, all right, now, tab A, development agreement. We skipped over this pretty quickly when we went through it the first time because we were holding it for this meeting. Section 3.3 is the provision that says, okay, we'll issue bonds when all these things have been done. And so you can look at, we can look at section 6.3 and the highlights were on that prior presentation. You know, the state's got to come with their money. All documents have to be executed. Stadco would have paid off the existing sort of roughly $30 million of debt that we have on, I keep thinking we're at the other, at Nissan Stadium. All of those things, all of that has to happen before you issue bonds. So that's what section 3.3 of the development agreement says. And then if you go 2 sections over, section 3.5, what it says is, even though the bonds have been issued and the proceeds have been put into a construction fund, you can't actually start spending them on projects until the team has delivered a guaranteed max price contract. And that's because everybody, bondholders included, are depending on the construction of the new stadium. You saw those revenue streams, how they jump up with the construction of the new stadium. That has to happen for these bonds to work, so you can't spend bond proceeds on the project until we know we've got a budget and a construction contract that we're comfortable with. That's what's going on in section 3.5. Does that make sense? So you might ask, okay, well, what happens if for some reason none of that, we've issued bonds and that GMP isn't delivered? And section 3.6 talks about that. If that were to happen, then if by October 1 of 2024 that GMP is not in hand, everything unwinds and you've got to pay the bonds off, and the team would be required to fund any incremental cost. Now remember, you're going to have almost the entirety of the bond proceeds with a fair amount of investment earnings sitting there. But if that amount of money is insufficient to pay the bonds off, the team would have to come back, pay those off. All the documents unwind with one exception. The existing, and we've talked about this before, the existing lease would remain at the amended player and patron safety CapEx requirement. So that's really, I mean, those are the provisions that we sort of skipped over the last time we talked about the development agreement, and we just wanted to come back to them while you were hearing about bonds, hearing about the financing. So just let me stop there. Any questions on the development agreement before we go to the next one? All right, we'll keep it going. So the next one is the state funding agreement, and that is tab C in your binder. And we can spend as much time on this one as you want, but it is basically, we're the state and we're here with $500 million. That's what it says. You do agree to enforce your rights under the project documents. I mean, you think about it this way: if the state's giving you, if they're giving $500 million for this project, what they are wanting in return is the team to be here and this stadium to function as everybody intends for it to function for 30 years. And so your job then is to enforce the contracts you're party to make sure that happens. There is, we talked about this the other day, the concept of a Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. I think 10,000 square feet of space. You're familiar with that. That's the state funding agreement. Just by the way, you all are party to a state funding agreement already with the first stadium. I thought it might be helpful just to sort of run through to remember what that says. the state chipped in $55 million to Nissan Stadium back in 1996. They would chip in $500 million in this deal. In 1996, they also, that was the first time they enacted this stadium sales tax statute. But for the life of the Nissan Stadium deal until 2021, they withheld the state portion of that money to help pay debt service on that $55 million of bonds. In 2021, they amended the statute so that you started seeing some of the money, and so you got the first slug of it, and the fiscal year ended 22. And then, as Jeff described, that there is a holdback in the statute where they're holding back about $3.5 million a year through 2029 to continue paying off the $55 million of GO bonds, and then that goes away. So that step up that he described in 2030 is when all of the state stadium sales taxes come your way. That's what's going on there. Both agreements, both in 96 and now, require you to seek state approval for modifications. That again is in keeping with the theory that they don't want you monkeying with the deal. They want you, they want the team here for 30 years playing their games in this stadium. This one goes, it's a legacy of the past, but it's worth remembering. The parking was up to 4,000 spaces was committed to the state every workday under the current state agreement. And sort of thinking in realization that there's a parking garage now right over here, and just the way the world has changed, the reduced parking requirement, there is no parking requirement in the new deal. So that's a big change. There is no Sports Hall of Fame, as you know, in Nissan Stadium. There is in this deal. So that's the old versus new.
Why did we do the GO bonds then versus revenues?
The state versus us?
In the Nissan, it was general obligation bonds.
Those were state GO bonds.
They were state GOs.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and if you continue to ask me questions, you're going to get an answer that you're going to. Okay, we can't do GO bonds for arcane constitutional reasons. The state can,
okay.
and if I will not explain the difference unless you make me. But the state in both instances is going to do GO bonds.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the state agreement. We're making progress here. The next document, I'm not sure you have the council ordinance itself in your package, but you do have the intergovernmental agreement, which sort of covers the same ground, and that's tab D in your binder. This, if you've sat through all this so far, nothing in here is going to come as a surprise to you. It's just going to be the formal agreement where everybody agrees to do what we've talked about. Metro's responsibility is to move the tax revenues that come to it over to you so that you can pay debt service on your bonds. And that basically is everything other than rent. Rent comes to you, not to Metro. But all these other revenue streams in some form or fashion come to Metro, and they're obligated to move it over. To the extent that there is any backstop, you heard a lot about that, this is the document whereby Metro would pledge that backstop to the payment of bonds. And then, we talked about this at length when we talked about the lease. There are a handful of funds. You see them there. The Stadium Revenue Fund, Maintenance Repairs, Capital Reserve, Bond Prepayment, Eligible Projects Fund. The Finance Department in this intergovernmental agreement commits to administer all of those on your behalf and do with them what the stadium lease requires. Your job, no surprise to you, issue the bonds. That's not listed on, well, it is. I've got them out of order. Issue the bonds. We've talked about that. You did ask about GO bonds, so just a little bit. Metro did issue GO bonds in 1996 to acquire the land, the campus land. There's about $8 million left outstanding on that. That has to date all been paid through the local portion of stadium sales taxes. So the plan to sort of stick with that and close that out is for you to take $8 million of funds on hand to pay those bonds off, so that as we go forward, all stadium sales taxes, state and local, come to you, and you can then use them to pay debt service on the new bonds. That's what's going on there. And just like with the state agreement, Metro is interested sort of in the same thing, 30 years lots of activation, so enforce your rights under the documents. And then, we discussed the Nashville needs payment. That's technically coming to you under the stadium lease, and so you assign it in the intergovernmental agreement to Metro. So, any questions about the intergovernmental agreement? We got one left, PSL. Yeah, that's right. So, the backstop, and there's a slide in your finance packet. Non-tax revenues are a discrete slice of the GSD portion of the general fund. I think it's about $230 million for the year ended 2022. It's those specific revenues that are pledged as a backstop, and I think y'all gathered this from the prior discussion. The intent is to structure the deal so that you never actually hit that backstop. They're there just as additional security. And so that's, Tom's right, that's a key piece. Bondholders are going to look to the intergovernmental agreement as the place where Metro brings that backstop to bear. So as we go into the PSL agreement, I just thought let's go back to this slide and remind ourselves of sort of where all the money's coming from. And we're really now focused on the last two pieces, the PSL contribution amount and then the STADCO piece. And the point I'm trying to make by putting this back up here again before I talk about the PSL agreement is that STADCO is really responsible for those last two things. And it's important to keep that in mind as you sort of think about the PSL agreement. So the PSL agreement, I believe, is the last, tab L. Yes, that, okay, so you just got it. So that's in front of you. And so I'm gonna get complicated for just a minute, but then I think we're gonna simplify it. Here's the complicated part. There are two ways that this might all go down. And the first way it might go down is described in section 2.2 of the PSL agreement. Both of these ways basically get you to the same place, but I'll just describe them. So there is the purchase option. And if you want to think about that, think about PSLs as like wholesale retail. You're the owner. You wholesale the piece of PSLs to them. The team pays you for them. They now own them. They go do with them what they want to do. They retail them. And so if in that model, you're making a wholesale delivery of the PSLs to them, they are making a payment into that PSL contribution amount account up front. That sort of fills up that green box. They then go and sell PSLs. As they collect the proceeds, those proceeds are applied to sales costs, commissions, whatever costs they incur to sell them, and then the repayment of STADCO's construction costs, all of which is to say your interest in this slide is on the left-hand side, and what they do on the right-hand side is sort of, that's their business. And they, if you want to go back to the prior slide, this is why I keep coming back to this, to the extent the PSL contribution amount goes down, the STADCO contribution in the red box has to go up and vice versa. So that's what's going on there. The second option gets to almost exactly the same place, but rather than you wholesale them to them, they act as your agent and they sell the PSLs on your behalf. And instead of making a wholesale payment for the PSLs, they make a PSL advance to you. The dollars and the flow looks the same. The style is different. This slide, basically the same thing's going on. All the action for you is on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, all of the economics is on them. And so, regardless of structure, STADCO is required to cover, this risk is on them. There's no risk to you on PSL sales. In either model, STADCO is responsible for all the marketing. You're not. In either model, sort of their marketing costs, how much do they have to spend to sell PSLs? That's a risk to them, not to you. So that's true of either model. The one difference, a lot of words on this page, sorry, is that, I'm going to go back to the slide and get away from all those words. In that model where they are actually selling them as your agent, you've just got some plain old governmental oversight responsibilities that you don't have in the wholesale model, let's say. And so you'll see in the agreement a recognition of that. And those will be memorialized sort of among the various bond documents you'll approve. One will be a PSL administration agreement. So if the team chooses to go this route, those oversight provisions will be built into that, and you'll see it. You'll see the sort of, there are some minimum standards in there. I think it's section 2.4. That the oversight responsibilities that you'll be provided. So let's sort of go through the balance of the agreement. Sections 2.4 through 2.9 stick STADCO with all the responsibilities for running the PSL program. No surprise. Article 3 talks about the term, which is the term of the stadium lease. No surprise. One important thing in Article 4 is you bear no responsibility for any costs of the PSL program. All the costs have to be paid from PSL sale proceeds. And then I'm not going to wear you out with Article 5 through Article 11, pretty standard provisions that you have seen, I think, in almost all of these documents. So next steps, or we've been marching down here. We're at the third box. You had that, and so the next step would be another meeting, and I know in short order on April 4th for Q&A on any topic you've got, and then I think the plan is to bring the resolution for consideration at that time. So we're happy to answer any questions you've got, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Questions?
Will I need to wait until April 4th to talk about the RFQ process or RFP process for the stadium?
No, I think you're free to ask any question you want. If we can answer it, we'll answer it. And if not, we'll drag somebody up there.
We want to address as much as possible.
Okay, well, at the last meeting, I asked a question about the RFP, if we could get a copy of it when it came out. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, it is a public record, and
Right.
you and I had a very short conversation. I think it'd probably be worth everybody hearing.
Exactly, and I would like for you to discuss some of that.
Okay, we hear RFQ and RFP, and it's easy to get confused. In Metro parlance, an RFQ is a request for qualifications, and it's almost always followed by a request for proposals. You're not usually done at the request for qualification stage. So the idea is to winnow down a field that could be unmanageably large into a smaller group that appears to be best suited to provide proposals. So we're, at this point, have issued an RFQ, and we are, I think, winnowing down the field, and an RFP will follow. Now, this just relates to the stadium development. Your questions, some of the questions that you've asked at previous work sessions have had to do with how the team will go about soliciting an architect for the project and how they will go about soliciting a construction manager at risk. Now, they are required under the terms of the development agreement to comply with Metro's rules of procurement, and they have been very good thus far, and I expect they will be all the way through this, in asking for help from us, and meaning my department, and also from Metro Purchasing to make sure that they do comply with the rules that would apply if Metro were doing these procurements.
Now, Metro has a supplier diversity program.
Yes, it's called something else, but yes.
Something similar, okay. Does the Titans organization have a supplier diversity program?
The team is going to have to respond to that as far as their day-to-day business goes. I would be surprised if they don't, but they will have to comply with Metro's rules of procurement for soliciting their construction manager at risk and for the design services. So two separate questions here, and it'd probably be best to ask them. And right on cue, this John Cooper, former director of law, now an attorney for the team.
Okay, and to continue, if I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yep.
If I may, it's my understanding that the Titans organization has started a hiring process for certain services. And I'd like to know if they complied with Metro's guidelines or policies in that process.
The answer to both is yes. In order to stick to the timeline that, in order for the stadium to open in time, they have started the process. They've put out an RFP for the architect of record, and those proposals are in the process of being submitted. There is an evaluation committee that includes Ms. Falk-Knudsen and Lucy Kempf, Director of Planning, on that panel who will be reviewing the finalists. But yes, we are using Metro's procurement process. And the same goes with the procurement non-discrimination program. The Metro Diversified Business Enterprise program sets goals based upon particular trades or services to be provided. And so we will be relying on Metro Procurement and their goal-setting process to ensure that we're complying as if Metro was doing the project.
For the services that you have procured so far, has it been competitive? Have you?
Yes. Yeah, the RFP was put out to the entire world. Now, for architects for these kinds of projects, there's a fairly narrow scope of firms that can actually do the work, but they are.
How narrow?
I don't know. I think that they've.
4.
So we have had, to date, there have been 4 proposals submitted. Now, under state law, those are all confidential until an award is made. So we can't disclose any details about who has submitted and what the proposals are until the award is made. But we have received 4 so far.
Okay, I am interested in socially and economically disadvantaged entities participating on the stadium project. The services that you have procured so far, have those services been competed? I'm leaving the upper level now, the major services that you are securing for the project. I'd like to know about the participation of small, disadvantaged.
So the only thing that is in the procurement process right now is the architect of record, and included within that RFP was they were to provide a description and explanation of their DBE participation. And so that will be evaluated as part of the process. But there has not been any other stadium procurement done at this point.
How will you go about identifying companies, entities, to have opportunities in participating on this project?
At the subcontractor level, the intent will be to follow Metro Procurement's guidance because they maintain the list of qualified eligible firms. And so we will have a robust list already. So that's the benefit of working with Metro, is because they already have these mechanisms in place.
Any other questions?
I'm just thinking, I should do it out loud, shouldn't I? I'm curious as to the NFL's standards for supplier diversity. Does the NFL have a standard for supplier diversity?
I don't know, but we can get you that answer.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, we'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we've concluded your presentation. Thank you all so much for being with us. And also, if anyone would like one-on-one time, feel free to reach out, and Monica will schedule that for you before our next meeting. Before we wrap up, I would like to see if there are any facility-related questions from the board for our other partners. If not, this concludes today's meeting, and I'd like to thank the staff, the Nashville Sounds, Metro Legal and Finance, and the Mayor's Office, and our special guest today for presenting. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 4th at Geodis Park. We do anticipate a vote at this meeting. So please make plans to be there. And if there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Consider yourselves adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.